I didn't love estate planning because it was always younger generation complaining and being greedy for their parents' money. And so I set out to just do business stuff. I knew the language. I just was very comfortable in it. And then I found myself helping small business owners do their longevity planning and transition planning. And then I did their estate plans. And so full circle, I started doing a lot more estate planning and found I enjoyed it. Trusts are interesting. A lot of people think they need them and they don't. We actually talk people out of them pretty frequently. Trusts are super helpful if you want control over how gifts are given. Let's say you have someone you're giving money to and they've had a gambling problem. And you're like, I don't want to give them a lump sum right away. I want to have it over time to make sure that they can pay their rent.
Welcome to Catching Up to Fi, a podcast on mindset, money, and life for late starters of any age on their journey to financial independence. I'm Bill, and I'm a late starter.
I'm Jackie, and I'm also a late starter, and we're your host. We're here to help you on your journey to financial independence, no matter where you're starting.
We're going to talk to experts, other late starters, and explore topics related to our mission.
Join us as we catch up to Fi together.
Hello, and welcome back to Catching Up to Fi. I'm Bill Yount with Jackie Cummins-Koski, one of my BFFs in the world, and influences me every day. We may disagree at times, but in the end, we love each other, and we have your interest at heart. So, Jackie, how are you doing today?
I am doing good, and we just learned to agree to disagree, and that's totally fine. But you know what? We grow in the meantime, and today's show, I think, really demonstrates how we've both grown, and it set off some alarm bells for us, and I know that it's going to do the same for our audience.
Yeah, this is a critical topic that we let go in our global financial plans. You've worked twice as hard to catch up on your path to financial independence, so why leave your legacy to chance? If you think you don't have enough assets to need an estate plan, this episode for you, and you might be wrong.
Exactly, because we were wrong on a lot of things as we were talking. So our guest today is Allison Harrison, and she knows that financial independence is only as strong as the framework supporting it. So she is the founder of ALH Law Group, which is a business and estate planning law firm that celebrates diversity, and it's located in Columbus, Ohio, right around the corner from me. So she gave a very fun, lighthearted, and frank talk at the Economy Conference, and her main focus was this theme: why your fire plan is screwed without an estate plan. So we had to bring her on, right, Bill?
Yeah, Allison, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to chat more.
Yeah, right off the bat, we want to know, it's one of those friction things that I don't want to get into. We think there's a cost, but in the end, if we don't get involved in the front end and you lose a lawyer to create our plans, we can get screwed on the back end and it costs more. So how did you get into this area of focus in your background in the estate planning and small business law arena?
Yeah, I grew up with small business owners as parents and relatives. I think one time I sat down and looked at one family tree and it was like 75% of it was a small business owner. And that included women and husbands. It was my aunts mostly that were small business owners. My dad, my uncle were, but the women in my family were as well. And so that was just like part of me. I went to law school. I thought I was going to do estate planning. Then I started working for car dealerships, small business owners, mom and pop shops. And I didn't love estate planning because it was always younger generation complaining and being greedy for their parents' money. And so I set out to just do business stuff. I knew the language. I just was very comfortable in it. And then I found myself helping small business owners do their longevity planning and transition planning. And then I did their estate plans. And so full circle, I started doing a lot more estate planning and found I enjoyed it because I got to work with people and we talked about, hey, are your kids going to fight? Are your nieces and nephews that are benefiting going to argue over this? Let's head it off now so you don't end up to be one of those cases that some law student has to study in 5 years. And so that's my journey as I started with a business background and then got into estate planning. I think a lot of estate planners came into estate planning and learned some business.
All right, well, that's fantastic. And to back up a minute, because we don't know your personal story and evolution and entry into the FIRE movement and the Economy Conference, take us back to your own genesis of your approach to money, your money scripts and background, family and educational learning in that arena.
Yeah, think the thing that is different is we grew up talking about money. We didn't necessarily grow up talking about here's how much your salary is and what you're bringing home, but we talked about investments. My mom was in an investment club. When I was 6 or 7, she didn't go to book club. She went to her friend's house and they picked stocks. And my sister and I were in high school. My dad would gift us money and we got to pick stock. And we had to come and say, this is why I want to buy this stock. Here's what I think it will do. And so we both got to do that. My sister cashed hers out much later. I cashed mine out to pay for law school. And I think I had Nike and she had Pepsi or vice versa. I wanted to buy Under Armour, but they were a private company at the time. My dad made the offer. I can't even say it's an evolution. It was in my DNA when I was born. This is what you talked about, and it is fun. And even now, when I get together with my dad, we talk about my business, my firm, his finances. It's just something that is enjoyable. I don't know how to answer that otherwise.
I'm loving this, Allison. So your mom was in an investment club. So I was in an investment club, and that was right after I got divorced. And that changed the trajectory of my life. But I'm hearing how much of an impact it had on you. And back then, there wasn't a lot of women investing.
I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but in the 90s, women going to investment clubs wasn't a thing. But that was where my mom found some of her best friends.
And she invested and you invested in individual stocks. All right, well, I'm against it. I'm a passive indexer all the way. Did you stay in a portfolio of individual stocks, or did at some point you transition into the more traditional FIRE or Bogleheads movement approach?
Yeah, I think that was to give me an idea of how stocks worked. That was my dad's approach. But since then, it is much more into, I'm going to call it a managed product. It's more mutual funds, target funds, things like that. I'm not individually picking my stocks anymore.
Not to mention her business. That's probably the strongest investment out of all of it. But it sounded like it was a really good teaching tool for you to learn. And when it comes to mutual funds and index funds, the underlying components are individual stocks. Kids know what Disney is. Kids know what Nike is. They don't know what a mutual fund is.
And I think that was the premise, because I was talking with a younger attorney here about what did you grow up with? What was your knowledge base? And it wasn't the same. And so I was like, now I'm going to turn into my dad and get you a subscription to Kiplinger. My entire life, my dad had a subscription to Money Magazine for my sister and I, and it just showed up wherever we lived. And that's now turned into Kiplinger. And I was like, here I am doing the same thing.
Yeah, the organization I was a part of and still a part of, I actually sit on the national board, is Better Investing. And they're the nonprofit investment organization that supports investment clubs. It's so wild when you hear even some small things, how it influenced your kids in that household. So I just love to hear that. And I had no idea about you on that. So that's really cool to hear. And to everyone, whatever you're doing at home, the kids are listening, they're picking it up.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is you came to economy. There were 6 degrees of separation, how Diana Miriam found you. But were you before this engaged with the FIRE movement inside this bubble of us weirdos in this cult?
No, very transparently, I wasn't. I knew it existed, but I hadn't participated. I have to tell you, economy was amazing. I enjoyed the absolute heck out of it because, like I said, I enjoy talking about finances, investment. What does your business look like? And I was like, oh, there's a whole group of people. They also like to do this. And so it was really enjoyable to do that. And I think listening to so much of it, I was like, oh, I followed FI. I just have never used the same language.
I think that's an important part, Bill. We do want just everyday people that have never heard of FIRE and don't even know what it stands for. So it's just financial independence and creating the ability to retire early. There's a ton of people that I know that would never identify themselves that way, but they like talking about money. They're very savvy with their money. They're very conscientious. And that's what we're trying to emulate, and people that we're trying to wave in to have these better habits. So Allison, maybe you didn't realize that you were a part of this, but it's not necessary to use that language or those labels.
Yeah, I enjoyed the heck out of it. It was nice because even though that wasn't necessarily my vocabulary around things, I knew exactly what everyone was talking about. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. It's not something that's intimidating where you're like, oh, you're speaking Klingon. It's not that different. And so I think anyone who's intimidated by it, don't be. It was super easy to pick up and run.
Did you actually learn something yourself as a speaker and as a savvy financial person?
Oh, yeah. I have copious notes. My wife and I are looking at buying an investment property. And so there was a whole session on how do you figure out the ROI? Is this a smart decision? I was just diligently writing that down.
Yeah, and we definitely learned a lot from you. And I just love your style. So, estate planning for a lot of people is not the most exciting thing, but you use some very colorful language and you were having so much fun doing it. And I wasn't even expecting it. And so, I don't like to be biased, but that was one of my favorite sessions during the whole thing. And I told Bill, I'm like, we got to get her on. And that's why I reached out to you so quick. And she's in Columbus, right around the corner. So our conversation today is going to be a lot more fun than you are typically going to hear about estate planning. And she's going to boil it down in plain English. Every now and then we might need to use a legal word, but we'll define that. But you're so right when you basically said you had a slide that said, you're just screwed. Your fire plans are screwed if you don't have an estate plan in place. I don't want all of my money and my hard savings to blow up if I happen to be either gone too soon or frankly, turning that spending gene on to start the legacy early. So this was so great. And I just loved your talk and our audience is going to appreciate what you have to say today.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and don't forget that a lot of fire folks are either single, no kids, or double income, no kids, and legacy and estate planning. We've talked about with Jay Zigmont, there's some unique features to that where you don't have that bloodline lineage. We may not focus on that today. I do want to focus on when you're a female business owner. Was that the case right out of the gates? And then secondary question, did you have trouble getting any financing to start your business as a woman? Do you think there was any discrimination potentially there? And then we're going to get into your focus on minorities, business owners, and the LGBTQ population that have unique needs. So that's a lot of stuff, but that's the line of where I want to go. Take us through your own journey to small business, and then we'll go into your focus on specific populations.
Yeah, sure. No, I didn't start right out of law school running this. So I was in-house for 18 months. I moved to a law firm and I was there for around 18 months. I wasn't a culture fit. I hated it. I was looking for new jobs and they didn't like me apparently either because they fired me. Well, what am I going to do? And I was like, I think I can do this. Running a business can't be that hard. And so I started running a business and I'm 12 years in and I can't imagine doing anything else. I remember I called my dad after I got the news that they were like, you've got 30 days and then you're done. And I was like, I think I'm just going to start my own firm. And he was like, great. You were never meant to work for anyone else. And at the time I was like, what in the world does he mean? What? I had some expletives rolling around in my head. He was right. I don't think I was meant to work for someone else. I love it. I cannot imagine doing anything else.
What was it like to start it? Did you have any trepidation, anxiety, taking on this risk? 1 in 10 small businesses fail. This is intimidating. You come from a family entrepreneur, so you saw it and you saw potentially how to do it and that it was possible. But I don't have that necessarily entrepreneurial gene. I get that imposter syndrome, fear of failure. What was it like to take that leap? Did you have difficulties starting as a woman and maybe as a lesbian, for example? Too? Was it hard?
No, the answer is no. I mean, I was too young and dumb. I was 28. At 28, it's not intimidating because you don't have anything. So I didn't really have a lot to lose. I think the biggest thing is I had just closed on my first condo. And so I closed in May and I got let go in October. I started my firm in November. And I was like, oh, I have to pay a mortgage. That is a little terrifying. But when my dad had made the comment of, you weren't meant to work for someone else, if you need help, let me know. Just having that statement was so reassuring. I never had to reach out and get that help, but I knew I could if I needed it. Financing, no, I built this on a bootstrap budget. I think I had $3,000 in my checking account and a laptop that I promptly broke a month into running my firm and had to go buy a new one. So it was a little scary, but again, I was young and just oblivious to the risk. As a female, I don't think I ran into any issues. The biggest thing I had at the time for being queer was, how much do I embrace it? I was working with more conservative business folks, and I was like, I don't know if that's going to alienate clients. And so I didn't fully embrace my identity. And then over time, I just started talking to those clients and talking about my girlfriend, now wife at the time. And no one batted an eye. And I was like, I don't think this is going to hurt business. And then finally, I was just like, this is who I am. You're either hiring me or you're not. And I can't say that I've lost any clients because of it. I've had one or two judges, more because I'm female, be confused. I remember going into a small claims hearing for a client, and I raised my hand, and they're like, but you're a lady. And I was like, yeah, yes, I am. But besides that, I think I've been very lucky in that way.
That's so good to hear. And kudos to your dad, who just in a simple sentence gave you all the confidence in the world. And then, of course, to your mom for teaching you about stocks at a young age, because a lot of us don't get that at all. And the part about the financial thing, I thought it would have been a whole lot more money to be able to start a firm like yours. And so it's just nice to hear that it doesn't have to take a ton of money. You start bootstrapping it, you start small, and you just try to inch your way up. And now look what you've built. Your website is amazing. You've got a huge clientele. You got a huge team. And I'm like, this girl is big time. And for you to tell me that you started out so small, it's just kind of funny.
Tell us where you are today after 12 years of growth. How big is your firm? Is it all female run? What are the aspects of how your firm has evolved to today?
Yeah, I continually lose count, but I think we're at 11 in people who work here, including myself. It's 10 or 11. I'm the sole owner. I had a business partner for a little bit, but that didn't work out. And so it's back to just me. We're all female except for one. We have one gentleman who works for us part-time right now. That's not intentional. Certainly, I think just with kind of our brand, how we've built a reputation, we tend to attract more women. I really don't have an answer for that. Clientele-wise, it's been a fun journey. I started with just business owners, and we still support a ton of business. So we do transactional business litigation, and then we do succession planning, and then we have a whole estate and probate kind of department. It's 3 people. And it's just fun because we also have a lot of overlap too. I have one thing right now where someone inherited a business, but I don't know that the paperwork's quite right. And so they're like, we want to get our operating agreement in order. And I was like, oh, now I got to see your trust and the person who's died, their trust, their will, the probate. I need to make sure that everything has passed you correctly before I even undertake writing your operating agreement.
Yeah, the focus on small business is important to our community and to the FIRE movement because a lot of folks have those side hustles and they may form an LLC, they may not. And the structure and the organization of these things is important for both protecting your intellectual capital, your creative information, and then to figure out what happens when one of the partners say, I was to have a heart attack tomorrow and I wanted the podcast to live on and Jackie to work it. Tell us a little bit about what the steps you take a small business owner through so they're not missing any blind spots.
Yeah, the usual first step when we talk to a small business owner, kind of on any level, whether we're really focused on estate planning or we have something else we're helping them with, is do you have an operating agreement? So if you have an LLC, it's an operating agreement. If you have a corporation, it's bylaws. If it's a partnership, it's a partnership agreement. Sometimes the language gets thrown around differently and they'll say, I have a partnership, but really it's a 2-person LLC. That's fine. I'm happy to use whatever language the client feels comfortable with, but I'll draft the legal document that they need. And because we have to figure out, what do you want? What is your goal as the business owner? It's not one size fits all. There are certain tools that we use over and over, but it's, what do you want? You may say, when I die, so does the podcast. Okay, great. That's a different plan, right? Then I want it to live on. And so we talk through that. Now, the people who are just starting with their side hustle, we'll coach them through, hey, what do you need? What does it look like to run a business? There's some really basic things. You do want to have some sort of structure that separates you personally from the business for liability, because then the business and only the business assets are at risk. There's certainly some tax advantages on write-offs and things when you have a very formalized business, but that's for you and your accountant. I'm going to talk through the legal piece of it. And then how do you keep that protection? Some people are like, oh, I have an LLC, great. And then I put everything into my LLC account and I pay for my groceries and stuff. And we have to walk through, okay, LLC pays for LLC things. We have to have that separate from our personal to keep that level of protection. And so it's a lot of education I think if you go to our website and type in LLC, we've written a lot about it, especially for the folks that are side hustle. I don't want you to have to pay money if you don't need to. And so I want to provide as much education as we can out there. So when you start out, you're like, oh, okay, cool, I got this. No, certainly some people time value of money. They're like, I'd rather pay someone to do it right because I just don't have the time to educate myself. We love those people too, obviously. But we do try and offer a lot of free resources for folks. And then just really quickly on the minority business piece, if they can get certified, we'll talk to them about certification, because the amazing part, at least in Ohio, is there's a lot of funds available. If you are a certified minority-owned business, you can sometimes get legal fees covered. You can get marketing assistance. There's grants available for. And so if we can also direct them that way to assist, we do.
So Allison, do you have something like that on your website? I'm in Ohio, so I might as well.
I know I have written about the certification. I just don't know if it was on LinkedIn or if it was on my website. If not, I will send it to you. You can put it in the show notes on certification.
Yeah, I'm going to go digging for it. But Bill and I, we loved so many of your free guides that's on your website. You don't have to put in your email address. You click on it, turns into a PDF, you have it. So thank you so much for creating these one-pagers that's very beautiful, that gets right to the point on what to do, step 1, 2, and 3. I don't hardly ever see that. Everybody wants your email address. Everyone's gatekeeping with their information and things like that. But you provide a ton of free education guides, and we will definitely add that to the show notes.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. One of our web developers was like, do you want to require an email? And I was like, absolutely not. That is the worst user experience.
I'm with you on that.
And when you do that, you focus on LGBTQ and minority business owners. What are the unique aspects for them? There is a segment of our populations that is in that demographic, and they are probably underserved and may have blind spots as to what any unique features that they have to go through to do these things and create companies and operating agreements and protect themselves.
I think a lot of it is the education gap. Very honestly, when we think about minority communities, LGBTQ, you're talking about folks that have traditionally not gotten the same level as straight white folks. What it is their parents didn't have a CEO role. And so they don't know what it's like to sit in a CEO role. Like for LGBTQ folks, maybe their parents stopped talking to them at a certain age. And so they didn't get that additional kind of nurturing that you get into your early 20s, where your parents are not telling you what to do, but maybe giving you a little guidance on investments and finances because you still don't know how to balance a checkbook, right? And so it's just talking through those things and trying to provide the roadmap and meet them where they are. I think the biggest thing that I take pride in is I want to meet clients where they are from wherever they come from. Maybe it's a recent immigrant that just doesn't understand the American legal system. Okay, great. Let's try and talk through, what does that look like? What does it mean? How do taxes impact it? What's liability? How do you register? I want to be there to guide them through this process so that they understand it. I don't want to intimidate by using big words and making anyone feel dumb.
Yeah, and our tax situation is unique. We're both independent contractors in our physician businesses, and that's under our names and social security numbers. When we added catching up to 5 to the mix, it flows through our taxes as a separate Schedule C. It's an LLC, so we are protected from our own finances with the LLC. Do we need any particular owner insurance in case there's liability anyway?
Oh, I love talking about insurance. I get a lot of folks with businesses that are like, I want my LLC owned by my trust and this super fancy thing. And I have to have a frank conversation of, I don't know that you're capable of continuing to operate under that structure. Because then what happens frequently is things aren't signed from the trust. They then end up in your personal name. It destroys your whole plan. And so sometimes it's a maintenance cost where I'm like, what's actually going to be easier for you to do is buy insurance. That is easier than this complex structure that's going to take a lot of maintenance and paying attorneys over time to do. With insurance, we look at, do you qualify for like E&O, errors and omissions? Is there something industry specific for what you're doing? And then umbrella insurance. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's an umbrella. I'm not an insurance salesperson, but it helps cover the things your other insurance don't, or if you exceed your premiums. And it's cheap. I know $1 million umbrella policy is a few $100.
So, Allison, would the umbrella policy only cover personal stuff, or it could also be an umbrella over the business stuff?
So you get it on yourself usually as individual. So if you ever had liability that exceeded what the business could pay, you then have coverage before you ever get to personal assets.
You have to add the small business to your insurance policy and make sure that it's a covered entity.
I think that's a conversation with your broker. This is one time where I think insurance brokers are incredibly valuable, is to lay out the map. I know we've shopped around personally for a broker who really will lay out, if do scenario planning, if this happens, this is how coverage would work, and making sure that the coverage is there. To me, insurance isn't, oh, I'm just going to go buy it off the shelf, especially for business owners. It's not the equivalent of a State Farm Progressive car insurance where you can really easily map it. It's getting into what's actually covered. What's are on these exclusion riders? Do you cover my business? And so having those more pointed conversations with whoever you're buying insurance from, if you get a good broker, they're worth their weight in gold.
Okay, so maybe you need a separate broker for the business aspect, but it is interesting to me that an LLC is not an umbrella in and of itself, and maybe your personal policy can cover your business because it's under how your money flows through your own home household income. We're a little selfish here because we're still organizing ourselves at Catching Up to Fi. It's not like we're a massive business, but we want to do it right because maybe we do grow. Maybe something happens. And how you organize at the beginning is how important.
So the LLC is its own bucket of liability. You should never get to personal liability. The CYA is that umbrella policy. And so I don't know that I clarified that before, is maybe you a couple of times paid for groceries out of your LLC and you've somehow dissolved that corporate structure. Now you have the umbrella as a backup. That's really what I'm thinking of. Instead of this complex, I'm going to have my trust own it so that I personally don't get to anything. This is the other solution, is let's not do that. The LLC is its own bucket of liability, but as the cherry on top, let's get an umbrella policy.
Yeah, I think I follow you on that one, because if they can't get enough out of the LLC, they're going to come after you personally. And at the point they come after you personally, then that's when your personal, and I think what's normally titled personal umbrella policy. So I guess that would mean that it's personal. But you're right, an insurance broker or somebody on the insurance side probably is well versed in that can guide us a little bit.
So Jackie, we need to get our operating agreement together. We need to get some liability insurance on board. And we got some catch up to do. Let's move on. And one of the things that people get caught in without the proper documents is probate. Can you take us through a little bit about, if you pay up front for your trust, for example, and get things organized, you might be actually saving money as opposed to migrating through the probate system, and saving time and getting privacy. So what are some of the things that people really need to think about and why do you want to avoid probate?
Yeah, probate is not bad. It's expensive and it takes time. That doesn't always mean it's a negative, but a probate in Ohio, and I think this is pretty typical across the country, if you have more than the bare minimum, there's some fast probates under a certain threshold. But let's say you have over 100,000, because I think that's about the highest. That probate, to get those assets from you to whoever you want them to go to, is going to take at least 8 months, but probably closer to 14 to 18. That's a long time to let assets sit. And then there's also a period of time when you pass away, even before probate happens, where they go unmanaged if you don't have a plan. If you run your business and you have to pay employees, make rent, all those things, no one can do that if you don't have a plan and you're a sole owner, whatever the organization looks like. The probate process almost requires an attorney. I think every court has a self-help option. It's not good. And it's really confusing because it's like you file this form, but not that form, but if this, then that. And so there are incredibly bright people that just can't navigate it because they do it once in a lifetime. The attorney that you hire does it every day. They breathe it. They probably help the court at some point draft the form. And so you have to pay an attorney. I think that's pretty unavoidable. And even for that small probate that we were talking about, that fee's probably $6,000 to the attorney, but you also have a fiduciary, and the fiduciary gets paid. And the way the fiduciary gets paid is on a sliding scale. Ohio, it's 4% of the first 100,000, 3% of the next 300,000, 2% above and beyond that, and 1% of real estate. That adds up really fast. And so you could be paying, and I say you, the decedent, that estate could have paid $6,000 in attorney's fees and let's say $10,000 in fiduciary fees. The plan to avoid probate didn't cost 16 grand. I can tell you that plan for that type of estate probably costs 2 to 4 grand. And so it's just like the plan ahead could have avoided, one, the delay, but two, that huge expense and the headache. Planning ahead is usually, okay, let's have transfer on death affidavits to transfer stuff immediately. For businesses, let's have something in the operating agreement says when they die, here's what happens. The person the next day can step in. And so doing all of that just, one, expedites the transfer of assets, but also is far less expensive.
Well, that sounds like a massive AUM fee. You're dinging your estate. You got state estate taxes, you got federal estate taxes, and boy, some of that money could have gone onto your heirs and your business partners otherwise. I get it. That's really important. And the FI community needs to be aware of it because it's an optimization hack, a necessary one.
Yeah. And the other thing, Allison, what about the privacy issues when it comes to probate?
Yeah, probate's public record. And what happens in probate is we have to list all of the decedent's assets. So every bank account gets line itemed. Every piece of real estate gets line itemed. The value of the business, all of that's made public record. And some people don't care. They're like, I'm dead, whatever. But other people are like, I don't want people to know how much my niece or nephew just got from me, because that's also public record, how much someone inherited.
Does everybody need a living revocable trust? Is it that important? Or are there certain populations where, don't worry about it. You just need a will and healthcare power of attorney, durable power of attorney. When do we need to edge into this domain of needing a living trust?
So trusts are interesting. A lot of people think they need them and they don't. We actually talk people out of them pretty frequently. Trusts are super helpful if you want control over how gifts are given. Let's say you have someone you're giving money to and they've had a gambling problem. And you're like, I don't want to give them a lump sum right away. I want to have it over time to make sure that they can pay their rent. Or maybe all I want to do is buy them a house. That is where a trust comes into play. It also comes into play if you have minors that are receiving, anyone under 18, because if you give a gift to someone under 18, a probate has to be opened because it's a guardianship. And then there's reports that have to be filed. And it's a whole big thing until they turn 18, their yearly reports, bonds, again, lengthy, expensive. But if you're, let's say, dual income, no kid, and you're like, look, when I die, I want my wife to have everything. That's a transfer on death situation. You can name beneficiaries and use TODs most of the time. If you get in the higher tax bracket, and by higher, we're talking federal tax, it's like 26 million. So you got to be really wealthy to worry about a federal tax because that's the exemption as a married couple. I think that it keeps going up with inflation. So please, it's somewhere in the double-digit millions. And so that's not what we're planning against. A trust doesn't necessarily make sense all the time. Maybe you want to look at an ILET. It's an irrevocable life insurance trust. Yeah, that may be something different from a planning strategy that we can talk through. But if you're dual income, no kids, make a decent living and have $2 million in retirement, you may not need a trust.
Yeah, I appreciate you going over that, Allison, because I personally have so many people asking me about a trust. And my question is, what problem are you trying to solve? So I appreciate you as an attorney. I'm just curious, Bill, what were you trying to solve where you were believing that a trust would solve it? And maybe it can, depending on what you were trying to do.
Well, we have kids and there's potential significant inheritances, and that family wealth, the generational wealth, we want to see flow down a per stirpes line where divorce is a huge thing. And maybe you don't want to see assets flow down the divorce side to the estranged spouse's family. I think a trust becomes important when there are more significant assets and you want to keep the wealth in the bloodline.
Would a trust solve that, Allison?
It can, but I have talked to many divorce attorneys about this issue because this is the thing that comes up. I want my kid to have it. I love their spouse, but I don't want their spouse to ever have it. And so I have asked divorce attorneys, I'm like, hey, look, I don't know anything about divorce law. Fill me in. Is this a real thing? And they're like, no, inheritance is their property. This is for Ohio. I want to be very clear. They're like, that isn't something that's part of the marital estate. Now, that can change if you're in a community property state like California, and every state's different. But I always go with, well, let's bring in someone who does divorces all day long and ask how this is handled in that state, because it's a misconception sometimes of, oh, I'm going to leave it to them, and then that dirtbag that I've never liked is going to take it all. Not necessarily.
Yeah, that's interesting because you can have in this trust even clauses where I call it a mistrust. If you have the gambling problem, an alcohol problem, bad behavior even, you can have a rider or clauses where, no, you've given up your right to an inheritance because of these issues.
I have some folks who their kids stand to inherit quite a bit, and they're like, they have to work. They will not be a trust fund. And so we have provisions in there that says they must show proof of gainful employment 30 hours a week or more for this period of time before a distribution can be made. And that's the nice part. Trusts are so customizable with restrictions and such, but not everyone needs that level.
Yeah. So I think it's important to specify that you are looking for some unique provisions. I feel like the word trust is like a catch-all. I'll know someone where they probably have a negative net worth. They're like, oh, do I need a trust? And it's just a buzzword that's out there. And it's more than anything, you are trying to put specific provisions on the money that you are leaving behind. I have this thing where there's a buzzword that's overused. Why don't you describe what you are talking about? Because many people don't even need a trust. I would want to know a little bit more about how do you avoid probate and other words. A trust is one way to do it, but there's so many other things. You mentioned the transfer on death or whatever. So if you could step through those things, because I think those things are more common than setting up a trust with these unique provisions that some people need because the amount of assets warrants it.
Yeah, a lot of assets. I won't say every asset, but almost all of them that we're thinking about that are held by a financial institution in most states, there's a few that won't, will allow what's called a transfer on death beneficiary. So I think on some checks, when we used to write checks, it would say like POD to someone. That says when that person dies, the owner of the account, it's payable on death to fill in the blank. You can do that on checking accounts, savings accounts, investment accounts, retirement accounts, life insurance accounts, most states your car and your house. The house gets a little funky because there's a handful of states that don't allow it, and then there's a handful of states that call it a ladybird deed. I don't know the lineage of this one, but it functions as a transfer when you pass away to someone else. Some of the other mechanics are different, but most states have a provision in their code that allow for it to transfer outside of probate. And that's the best part of all of these. They transfer outside of probate to the person listed as the beneficiary. The beneficiary comes in with a death certificate to wherever and says, I would like to proceed to get what I'm entitled to. And then the bank has them fill out some forms. And usually within a week or so, the payments are distributed to whoever. And so the easiest thing to think about is if you set up your 401k when you work somewhere, one of the setup questions is who's the beneficiary? It's the same thing across the board on all assets.
And you can have a divorce and you can forget to change your beneficiary, say on your life insurance policy. And this is a trap that happens all the time. And a lot of people recommend every year reviewing these issues and going through all your accounts. Who's your primary beneficiary or beneficiaries? Who's your secondary beneficiaries? Because life happens, life changes. And you got to stay on top of this stuff so that your money's going where you want it to go, even if it's outside of probate. The question I have with regards to trust is, you may get the paperwork together, but then funding the trust is a critical move. And people forget this part, and putting assets in a trust and funding it. Tell us about that and what do you got to watch for?
So that's a big thank you, Bill. This is actually another issue with trust is you've spent this money to build this document that works exactly how you want it, but now you have to get stuff into it. So that usually means changing the way things are titled. The bank account now isn't the Allison Harrison bank account, it's the Allison Harrison Trust bank account. Or perhaps the beneficiary is the Allison Harrison Trust. That's something that you have to go do. And it just gets missed. People are like, oh, I got this trust. I'm gravy. And then like, now we have to get stuff in it. The other kind of trap that we have seen is maybe they move, let's say, their car into the trust. The title is now in the trust of Allison Harrison, not my personal name. They don't call their insurance company. And they don't tell the insurance company, hey, the way that this thing is titled has changed and it can create havoc. Is there coverage? Is there not? And this happens with houses and cars, the two most expensive things you're probably buying in your lifetime that involve insurance. And one, you have to get stuff into the trust and fund it. But two, you have to make sure that the insurance pieces are in place to cover any damage that comes up to those assets.
So do you title the house in the name of the trust letter for letter, or depending on the state, I guess, you can put the beneficiary of the disposition of that asset into the trust? What's the difference, and when do you want to do one or the other, or is it just dependent on the state?
To me, that's dependent on the person. Some people are like, I don't want to deal with that right now. The beneficiary sounds fine. It means I have to call the mortgage company and then I have to do insurance and hell, I'm not going to do it. And so they'll do it as the beneficiary because I don't want to say they're lazy, but they're like, hey, look, the people who are inheriting this are going to have to do some legwork. And that's fine, right? That's really the question. Some folks, their mortgage is paid off. They're like, let's just take care of it now. I just want everything buttoned up. And so it's really of what does the client necessarily want? If we see a flag in something where we think there's going to be a fight, we may move it immediately because then it's done. The person was alive. There's no question. So it really depends on the client.
Yeah, that's interesting because let's talk about something as simple as their 401k. They're going to stick with the default and they don't want any extra complexity. So when it comes to a trust, you do have additional complexity. There's a list of pros and cons. And like you said, it comes back to education. It's not just one and done. If you've got new assets or assets that you need to move in there, you got to actually execute and you got to do something. With a beneficiary, it can accomplish some of the similar things. A lot of times people want privacy. They want to avoid probate and things like that. When I was taking my CFP classes, it was called rule from the grave. You want to try to dictate how you want that money done. And that's totally fine. I have an adult daughter as well that is getting married. And I think I feel similar as Bill in terms of, yeah, I'd love that to stay with her. But the truth of the matter is once she's married, they have children together. And I don't want to be that person. She's 30 years old, so I got a good sense of, is she able to do this? Now, when you have a significant amount of assets, maybe a portion of it, you do want to try to do that. My daughter's a smart girl, and all kinds of things can happen. And I guess I just don't want the illusion of control where you think you have control, but really when you're gone, you're done.
Thing you can do, I think, is you can give spouses or ex-spouses shares of the estate and predominantly shares to the lineage or the bloodline. That may be true. I don't know.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things you can do. You can do 80,000 different things, but does it even make sense? Do you want to put in the time and the effort and the complexity and all of that? That's for the individual to answer. And then they've got their heirs that they just added some complexity for their heirs.
Well, one thing that's interesting too, and you did this, Jackie, is there's companies out there online like TurboTax for Taxes that take you through prompts and will help you create your wills, your durable powers of attorney, and your documents, and even a trust. There's probably dangers there, and the FIRE movement is interested in optimizing costs, and the costs are potentially less. What do you think about these online templated approaches?
Okay, so this is the second time it's come up this week that someone has asked me about this. My feedback is they're great at being a template, but it's so complex and personal. So you're getting a cookie cutter. If you're fine with a cookie cutter that doesn't take into consideration what you truly want, it's just like, here's a plan, then go with that. But In most of the products that I have seen out there, they're not talking about avoiding probate. They're not instructing you on how to fund your trust. They're not customizing the trust to what you want. And so you're just getting what someone else thought was a good idea. Your risk tolerance, what are you willing to do, right? If I want to be in control, I'm not getting something off the shelf. It's a great starting point, but it leaves a lot to be desired.
In that same domain, actually, AI is in the field. And then there are probably lots of dangers here. Number one, how do you use AI in your firm? And is there a use case for this in the DIY side of the equation?
One, we use a ton of AI in our firm. We have some different legal specific tools that help us do our case law research and statute research much faster. We have some other tools that just help us digest when we do litigation for businesses. We get thousands and thousands of pages of documents. No one wants to pay us to analyze that all, but we can leverage AI and say, give us a timeline. When did this happen? We can really be much more efficient. And so that's a lovely evolution. We've been very heavy. One of our core values used to be technodextrous, but no one could say it. So now it's just tech forward. I can't spell it. I have to look it up every time. So tech forward it is. But we've looked at how do we automate? The next step is going to be how do we bring in AI to our clients in a safe way? Because we know you're using it. We know our clients are looking this stuff up ahead of time. I do think there's a space for AI here. I just say, what does it look like and do we trust the authorities? And to your DIY question, Bill, I can DIY fix my toilet. And if it breaks, I'm still there to figure out that I did a bad job. If I DIY my will, I am not alive to fix it. And so again, it's the risk tolerance. Do you want to accept that risk to save $2,000? Or do you want that peace of mind that I paid $2,000 and I know it's done right? That's a question each person answers for themselves. And also where you are in life. If you're in your 20s, yeah, maybe it's a little bit easier because your assets are a lot simpler. When you're in your 50s for the FI movement, it's not so simple. Hell, even if you're in your 40s in the FI movement, it might not be so simple.
Yeah. And Bill, I don't have a trust, nor have I found a use case where I want to get a trust. There was a point where I did look into it and discovered that people are using trust very loosely and it just doesn't always make sense. But to your point, Allison, it does take a lot of education on the front end. I guess I wasn't expecting it to educate me per se, and I knew I had to get that education somewhere else. Just like you had suggested, I have anything that will take a beneficiary, I put a beneficiary on it because I know it's private, it avoids probate, and it goes directly to that individual. And I guess I think about how little most people want to mess with stuff like that. What will they actually do? And I feel people will use the excuse to say, I don't want to meet with a lawyer. I don't want to do all this. Okay, can you at least name a beneficiary? I'm trying to get them to do something. And since I live in the state of Ohio, both my car and my home, I can name a beneficiary where it will transfer upon my death. So thank you for mentioning those things because I don't think that gets done enough. I think it's 25 states. I looked that up one time, but it's 25 states that will let you do a home and a car. I think some of the easy, low-hanging things sometimes get ignored because nobody's making money off of them. When you name a beneficiary, nobody's doing that.
It's the biggest disservice. When you open a checking account, they don't ask you this question.
Right. Why are they not asking that? When you're doing your 401k, they do ask you that. I think I had one checking account I opened that actually asked me if I want to name a POD, payable on death. But most of them I got to do easy online, but there was one bank where I had to go in person and I had 3 accounts with them. Not anymore. There was 8 pages for each account.
I had a pretty good idea what bank it was.
Yeah, it's in Ohio. They have a lot of coverage in Ohio. So yeah, it's so easy and so simple. I guess if you're listening to this and you wanted an action item, check your checking account and your savings account and make sure it has a payable on death. And of course, Allison, we want to squeeze you for any other actionable tips that people will do. And Bill, I guess I have a question for your business checking and savings accounts. Do you have a payable, not a co-owner, that would be your wife, but do you have a payable on death?
I have to check. I'm usually pretty good about that. It is a newer checking account, and they should prompt you. You got to dig into these things. There's a lot of friction there, and you will forget. There's a couple of things I want to touch on before we close the show, because people forget to think about their digital footprint online, all these accounts, all their passwords, and there's a digital component to your will. What are the traps, blind spots, pitfalls that we need to really watch out? Give us your top 3 to 5.
Oh, so this is less about when you die, but more when you're alive and can't do anything. People can't get in to pay your bills. As your financial power of attorney, let's say you're in the hospital. This happened to me. It was a family situation. I was the agent responsible for paying someone's bills. I couldn't get access because everything had a 2-factor authentication, and I had the passwords. I didn't have the phone or the email to get the codes. And so making sure folks have actual access to accounts, that is one thing that I think goes missing. The other is how much of your financial stuff is tied to a digital institution, a Venmo, a Zelle, a Cash App, a crypto. That also needs to be taken into account when you're looking at this. And I know in the crypto space, most of those will allow a payable on death. Venmo, Zelle, and Cash App are a little bit of a Wild West. And so making sure that you have a way for someone to have access, that may be through a will and knowing, hey, we have 99.9% of everything squared away because we've got beneficiaries. This is the 0.1% that's going to go through a small estate because it's a little amount through probate, which costs a few $100 and happens in a month. Cool. That is perfectly fine. We do have some folks who are like, no, I want a little bit to go through probate so people can see what that looks like and see how easy this is. Or if someone wants to fight, there's an amount of money to fight over. I had someone who did gold futures. You could invest in that. There's no beneficiary on that account. And it's just a pain in the butt because they're online. They're really hard to nail down.
That's really important, and making sure that people can access things, use LastPass or 1Password or whatever, so that you can get into these accounts. I didn't know that in your iPhone you can have a legacy for your phone number and your code, so that you can actually get in there. Google does this, Android and Apple. And in addition to your health information, these things are critical to think about because they could be real stumbling blocks. My mom has been hacked and scammed. So it got to the point where she just trusted me and put me on her account so that it will make it easier at her death. I don't truly monitor it, but we put up some red flags, and the bank will call me when there's a significant transaction so I can prevent a large number scam. And this is a particular problem in the elderly, women, and particularly with wealth. So think about these things. There was one more thing that I found fascinating, and this is a good one for late starters. You have a second business under your lawyer business called Simple 18 Legal Kit. And this is a stumbling block for parents whose kids exit the home, empty nest, go off to college, and all of a sudden we were locked out of their health information and we couldn't help. What kind of documents do these young adult children of late starters, for example, need to think about?
Yeah, thank you, Bill. The company is actually called Safe Send Off, but you were really close because you got the idea out. It is a healthcare power of attorney, a HIPAA release, and maybe a financial power of attorney. The healthcare is absolute because if you're 18, you still don't know what half the doctors are telling you. I don't know an 18-year-old who feels super confident going. And so having the HIPAA release allows the doctors to share information with whoever you choose, whether it's your parents or an older sibling. And the power of attorney just says, if you can't advocate for yourself, here's who I trust to do it. Maybe it's an older sibling versus a parent because you have maybe older parents or you live closer to your sibling than your parents. That's fine too. And so those are the documents we really recommend for newly minted adults, if you will. Within that as well, we have an education series. What does it mean to be 18? How do you sign your first lease agreement? What happens if the cops show up at a party? Those kind of things that you start to navigate once you're outside of your parents' house. That's why we built Safe Send Off, was to provide that. I remember, this wasn't that long ago, my sister was giving birth. She's in her late 30s at the time. And my dad was trying to call the hospital to get information. And I was like, Dad, they're not giving it to you. She is well out of the house. You lost that privilege a long time ago. I obviously didn't tell him that, but I knew legally he wasn't going to get any info.
Yeah, but I'm sure my kids don't want me to know about their STDs or whatever. So
That's why I said maybe it's their older sibling and not you.
I'm not saying they had that, but there are things. I had one son that was like, no, I really don't want you to know what's going on with me. But at least it generates the conversation where they can either take responsibility for it. But it is important. Say they have a car accident and have a significant brain injury and can't act on their own disability and mental health incapacity are potentially issues. Yeah, I can honestly say I don't have these documents for my kids. I'm laying it out there, and we need to have those conversations because it's important to have renter's insurance for that person that breaks their leg at your party. People forget about that one too. Yeah, these are issues, and we've covered one hell of a lot today.
Let's say, Allison, I'm sure there might be one or two things that maybe we didn't bring up, or at least share some of your biggest sort of leave behinds that you think everyone should know about.
And is there any focus on late starters, our audience, for that matter?
Oh, yeah. So I think when we talk about estate planning, it's how frequently also do you review it? Because maybe as listeners, you did this when you had little kids. That's when most people, oh my gosh, who's going to take care of my kids when I pass away? And you did that when they were 2. They're now 18, 20, 16. It's probably time to review it. My mom passed away 6 years ago, and we got into a bunch of stuff, and we saw who my parents had listed to take care of us. And I was like, y'all didn't update it? This is the last will that you have is from when I was 5. It's probably not good. And so you do want to update that frequently, especially with younger kids. The person when they're born, that's the guardian, that may not be the same person when the kid's 10 or 16, because our family moves around, our friends move around. Maybe they get sucked into something. You're like, oh, we have grown apart in our philosophy on child rearing. Okay, make sure you're updating the documents. That's one piece that I think just gets missed because you're like, oh, I did that, check. And then we never came back to it again. And then the piece we really didn't talk about were the healthcare and financial powers of attorney. Those are the things that allow people to make health and financial decisions for you while you're alive. They stop when you die. We get a lot of folks who are like, oh, I have mom's financial power of attorney. I can go do stuff. And I was like, mom died. And so this no longer works. But it is super beneficial while you're alive. Also, joint accounts. If you have joint accounts, those usually transfer to the person, but they can be used wrong. A lot of folks will say, I'm going to be on my parents' account. Because if we talk about the sandwich generation, they've got kids and parents. I'm just going to be on dad's account so that I can take care of it. Now dad's subject to your liability and you're subject to dad's liability. And so that becomes problematic because maybe that's all dad's funds, but you somehow owe the IRS back taxes. IRS has taken all dad's money. And so joint accounts can be a risk versus helpful. And that's always something to evaluate.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about that. My mom has wild parties and smokes cocaine.
You better stop slandering her. That's the right term.
It's not fair. I love my mom dearly, but yeah, I've taken on her liability. So I got to think about that. More umbrella insurance, obviously. But there are interesting facets to this, and people want to use AI, people want to use templates, but I have a financial advisor because I know I have potential cognitive decline. I know I have blind spots. I know there's things I'm not thinking about, and a good value-based cost-effective advice is invaluable. And our FI community gets so orthodox with, I'm not paying for that. I'm hacking this. I'm DIYing this. And I want to make sure they're opening their minds and thinking. Not everybody's out there a shyster in the financial services industry. And you've got to find people like yourself that are fiduciary and have your best interest at heart. Look at these things. These are all important. And this is not a comprehensive list. This is for education purposes only. Do your own research. Talk to people that know what they're doing. Jackie?
Yeah, that's true. And Allison, thank you so much for mentioning the things while you were alive. And am I correct in thinking this? It seems like a lot of states, even hospitals, they will have these documents for free. And they may...
Not true.
Okay, Bill Yount, this question is for Miss Allison, our guest. Okay, so Allison, go ahead. I'd rather her to give me the buzzer.
Almost every state has a standardized healthcare and financial power of attorney that is available for free on a state website. It's usually been blessed by the State Bar Association or something. And so this is one place where if you want to DIY, I'm going to say it's okay, because that's going to at least get you something that has been reviewed by attorneys. It functions, right? And so hospitals may ask, do you have one? They may not provide you, except for the HIPAA release. They usually have a HIPAA release, but most states will have it available. That's an easy takeaway is Google healthcare power of attorney, insert state, and then use a little bit of your brain to make sure it's coming from a reputable .gov source.
Thank you, Allison. Bill, you can stick it, okay?
I'm an emergency doc, and I see people coming in all the time, either incapacitated, too ill to tell me what's going on, no families there, their paperwork hasn't come in, you don't know who to contact, you don't know what their wishes are. This is a huge problem, and you have to guess and act in the best interest of the patients and keep them alive.
Is that when they have nothing? Because both Allison and I are in the state of Ohio, and I know that the State Bar Association has put together these documents where you can get those. So my point is, one of the unique things that's actually free, they're pretty good, especially if they have been developed by a state bar association, which I don't know how common that is, Allison. Maybe we're just lucky in Ohio.
Jackie, this is paper. We are not electronic with this.
Well, you can be. Let's let Allison.
I think the disconnect is between both of you is Jackie saying you need it, Bill saying I don't see it. And the thing is, you need to do it, and then you need to give it to the hospital system in which you frequent. It's not going to be perfect, because if no one's with you and you get rushed to an ER that's outside of your hospital system, it's not useful. But also tell people it exists. This is another fun one. People like to sign it and then squirrel it away and never tell the person that they made the agent about it. And so then it becomes useless. So sign it, file it where it needs to go. So if it's healthcare, your doctor's offices and those health systems. If it's financial, the banks.
Yeah, and if you come into the hospital, you don't have one, they're going to have you fill one out while you're there often to get that done. It's like funding a trust, right? You can do the paperwork, but it isn't any good unless you've told the people that are supposed to do it. They know the location. You may have a digital source with your financial planner. That document is there, so you can go to a person that says, yes, here it is. And I have to trust a lot of people that they'll say, I'm their healthcare power of attorney and I can make decisions for them. And I'm like, well, where's the paperwork when we're making critical decisions? So the default in the ER is let's keep them alive until we can figure out what's going on.
That's another really good action item. And thank you for clarifying that, Allison, because I think some people don't realize they thinking it's a really big deal. And it could be as simple as going to your state bar association or finding these documents, because they're so important. Many states really do support in trying to get this for everybody.
All the states. So I know they exist in all 50 states.
Gotcha. Okay.
My dogs have a chip in the nape of their neck. And I'm almost a fan of you having a QR code tattoo on your body that I can scan and say, this is what they want.
And those things exist, right?
When that happens, please call me.
Some people have those medical bracelets.
I am a fan because so often these things are hidden. It's in a safe deposit box, which, by the way, is the worst place to put any of these documents because no one can get to it.
Right, right.
Yeah, and then my dog has this pellet. If he gets lost, they can scan for it, and they know all this information about where you can fill out this paperwork. Yeah, and you may be able to update it that way. In Sweden, I think you can have one in your wrist, and you can get through the turnstiles. Maybe the day is coming where we do this. And what's interesting is AI may play a role here, because you can educate AI as to your wishes. And that's where you can have a site where you can go and say, you know what, they talked to this, there's this video that they educated someone as this is who I am and this is what I want. And maybe that's the future, who knows? But there are a lot of digital and universal options. HIPAA is restrictive in a way that really prevents ease of use with their end of life or incapacitated decisions. And I think there's a better way, and it's got to evolve, and we need to promote that. Do you have any ideas of what you would like to see in the future with regards to these things? Because you are techno-fishes forward, or whatever you said.
Tech forward. Just go with tech forward. This is a double-edged sword, but right now, for a will to be valid, it has to have a wet ink signature signed by 2 witnesses. This is for Ohio, but most states follow it. And then you have to submit the original. Not a copy, not a scan, the original. So that needs to be updated, but there's so many other things that come into play. Why can't you e-sign it? If you e-sign it, I can see you, but I can't see who else is in the room. And maybe someone's holding a gun to your head. And so you're e-signing it, but it's not free will. Okay, that's an invalid will. And so we have all these things, but there has to be some way to evolve between trying to dig up an original piece of paper from who knows how long ago.
We do virtual trials now where you're on Zoom, the judge is on Zoom, and you would think that you could do this and not have to go to a bank and all this physical friction. I really think there are got to be better ways to find information on patients, to do these documents without the friction of in-person stuff. So anyway, let's end on that note, or maybe there's a positive note that we need to end on and not death. But death is an important thing to plan for and reverse engineer your life, because that's one thing everybody's going to do. And an unplanned death, it leaves a mess for your relative. Do you really want to leave all the physical assets, a house that's full of junk and you're a cat lady or you've collected cans or newspapers? Who knows? But why leave a mess for your heirs when you can downsize, clean up? Let's make it easy for them and not hard. I kind of dread this time of life in a way.
Yeah, we call it being a hero. Be a hero to your family, however you qualify your family. Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. I've started thinking that way. I don't know when I flip that switch, but I am thinking definitely along the lines of what am I leaving behind? But Allison, can you tell us where people can find you if they want to work with you or they want to get some of those guides?
Yeah. So our website is alhlaw.com. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok, ALH_law. If you just Google Allison Harrison on LinkedIn, search it, I will pop up. We try and provide as much education through social media as we can, because our hope is that people learn a lot when they work with us, or maybe they just learn a lot because they follow us.
And you also have a podcast, relatively new, has a few episodes. Tell us what you do there.
Yeah, so we have CS Mob. It is CS minority-owned businesses. We interview minority-owned businesses, talk about their business, their challenges, their successes, and why they do what they do. I enjoy the heck out of it because I get to meet all sorts of amazing business owners, learn about stuff that I just didn't know existed. And so it's a really fun way to uplift the community and I don't want to say give back, but I think a great way to give a platform for folks that are doing cool stuff.
I think that's really cool. I heard your interview with Marlowe's Cheesesteaks. I think she was from Philly and came to Ohio, Columbus. I went by there, I will tell you, a couple of weeks ago when I was in Columbus. Delicious cheesesteaks, and I absolutely love your mission of highlighting local business owners.
Yeah, you are a force, and I'm very impressed with what you've done as a woman, as a minority, and your focus on small business. We've learned a lot. We got some work to do, Jackie. I'm sure our audience has found one or two things at least in this show that they've got to take action on too. So take that action, write it down, get it done, give yourself a timeline. And estate planning isn't just paperwork. It's the ultimate gift of clarity for the people you love. If today's conversation with Allison sparked a realization, don't wait. Get your house in order. Thank you, Allison, for being with us here today.
Oh, thank you both. I really appreciated this conversation. Thank you.
Always remember, it's never too late to start. It's better late than never. And it's always the right time to catch up to 5.
All right. We'll see you next week on Catching Up to 5.
So, Bill, as you know, we cannot do this show without our amazing staff and the people that help us put this on. And our editor is Fritz Brazard. We love them and they keep us going.
Yeah, Jackie, I mean, this show wouldn't have the quality it has without our folks, our peeps. And we'd also like to give you a few calls to action for the show. We love our community and we hope you love us back. If you would like to support the show and our mission to help late starters, you can do that at Buy Me a Coffee, which is a platform that allows you to make a donation. The link is in the show notes and on the website.
Check out the show notes for resources mentioned in today's show. Also, head on over to our website at catchinguptofy.com and check out our vetted resources, partners, and affiliates for discounts and their services because we love sharing great deals.
Please share the show with others and head on over to our Facebook community to help us grow. If you prefer video, head on over to YouTube and watch the show there. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Catching Up to 5. We would appreciate it if you could also leave us a 5-star review to help our message reach others.
And while we are financial educators that love to teach, remember that our content is for general education and information purposes only. We are not providing financial, legal, or tax advice. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making important decisions.
So, Jackie, we'll see our audience next time on Catching Up to 5. Cheers.